There's no feeling like winning a 24-hour race.
It's the best feeling of the world. I mean, you know, even if the prize money are better value than the Rolex you put on your hand, the watch, it's like a trophy. And it's a trophy you keep forever.
It's such a mental release, and it's very emotional for the whole team. I mean, there's a lot of tears and silly stuff that comes out because everybody's so damn tired.
You know, I've been fortunate I've won a lot of races, but winning the Rolex was certainly one of the highlights. Yeah, it's really, really good. I think it would be even better to win it again.
It's a hallowed ground here. And to be able to come and participate in this race, in itself is special. To do it as a team owner and proudly present your wares to the world is another whole part of it. But to win, it makes it even better.
Well, there you have it from the men who have done it. Winning the Rolex 24 at Daytona is the highlight of any driver's career. As we welcome you back, top of the hour here on the East Coast. 12 o'clock straight up. 1 hour remaining, plus 10 minutes, give or take, to account for the after-the-hour start of this race. I'm Bob Varsha, along with Lee Diffie, David Hobbs, and Dorsey Schrader. Calvin Fish, Brian Till, and Chris Neville are in the pit lane. There's a look at our race summary. Well, we've got a problem with the 10 car. This is the third-place car in the hands of Max Angelelli, who is taking huge bites out of the lead by the second-place car. Not sure exactly what's happening here. Calvin Fish.
Well, we'll try and get a word here with Wayne Taylor. He's on the radio now. They would do in at any time. You see Collard on the pit wall. He's ready to go. They were due in for a tire and fuel change. Wayne, what's the situation? Do you know?
I don't know.
Potentially out of fuel. I mean, you're close to your pit stop here.
I think he's out of gas the way he was swerving.
He's in the window. I don't know. Maybe there's a fuel pickup.
Okay, well, obviously the car is stranded out on course. They're saying that he should have had enough gas to get back in. They told me about 5 minutes ago he's due in at any time. The team would get up ready to go. Let's go down to Brian Till.
And not the only car having problems. The 66 car running third in GT has just had a problem a couple of laps ago. They think it's something in the differential. And if you remember Kevin Buckler exploding a tire early in this race, he thinks that may have actually been the differential problem rearing its head then. But it has cost him now. The car is in. They were going to try to run it in one gear for the rest of the time. It doesn't look like that's going to work. Chris Neville?
Well, I'm down with Mike Fitzgerald, who just got out of the 44 car. Hey, Mike. Mike, you guys are trying to catch the leaders right now, and how is that back window playing into the situation? I mean, I know you guys are leading, but the 74 car is definitely trying to chase you guys down. How's that back window playing in now that the speeds are back up?
It's tough. I mean, I just did a wet stint and a dry stint, and in the wet we were fine. You know, we were hanging on with them, doing the same lap times, had about a lap lead, and then when it went dry and we went to slicks, we were getting killed because that back window, all the air is going to the car and acting like a parachute, and we're just not getting around. I pushed as hard as I could. It felt like I'm doing 54s, but the car won't do anything but 57. So I got to go do the math. I don't know if that's enough for them to catch us or not. It's going to be close, I think.
Well, the 44 thinks they are good to go to the end of the race on fuel, but the 74 thinks they have to come back in for a splash. Lee.
Johnny Molam is back in the 44 too, and he's been going fast. There is the stranded 10, the SunTrust Riley Pontiac powered Daytona prototype. They have been, this car with Max Angelelli, the Italian driving it, has been the fastest car on the track for some time now. And this is crushing. A lot of the top executives from SunTrust have been here this weekend. This is their big foray back into motorsport sponsorship, and under the name of SunTrust, it's their first. And this is really devastating stuff.
It certainly was in with a chance there. It would have definitely caught the second place car, which has got some sort of a problem.
You might have to put the fuel in. Okay, pause the radio, unlock the car.
There is definitely a fuel issue.
One thought, Lee, is the fact that we've had so little dry running with this car. Remember, they didn't get much testing in. All of this race has been under wet conditions. Now, Bill Riley is one of the best in the business. I'm not saying he's going to make a slip-up like this, but Angelelli has been running the longest, hardest stint that he's probably put on that car since the car has turned a wheel, and that will certainly eat the juice a little bit quicker.
At the moment, he is looking for fuel. I'm sure that last bit of radio transmission, there was a mention of fuel and something. They said something about under the car and fuel.
Can you hear me? Yes, we're coming.
They're coming.
There they are. saying something about which one is it, the lower or the higher? What are they talking about?
I think they're talking about the fuel reserve. They're probably have a fuel reserve switch, and he's asking which switch it is, which usually both of these gas tanks will have a little reserve tank, maybe a gallon of fuel for this very occasion. But I'll tell you what, the 44 GT car is only 3 laps away from passing up this 10 prototype and getting on the podium.
Look at this, dramatic pictures from Daytona. This guy has just driven his heart out. He has done the majority of the workload, more than Emmanuel Collard, more than the team owner Wayne Taylor, and they're pinning their hopes on him to drive this thing home, and he was doing just that. He was within striking distance of second on Andy Pilgrim, and now he himself has to apply the fuel. He'll ditch that tank. Great pass.
Don't need that anymore.
And of course, you've got the system. If the system's got air in it, that could be a problem. It might take a little time to crank that out, so let's hope.
Here we go, he's got to fire it up. We'll be back to pit lane.
Is it fired up?
Not yet.
He's going to have to turn it over a lot to get it fired up, probably.
Guys, the reason they would have stretched it and rolled the dice this far is because they wanted to do it with just that one stop. If they'd stopped any earlier, they would have probably needed an additional pit stop.
Oh my God, turn his belt on.
Well, he's not going on the racetrack, though, yet, anyway. Now I think he is. Hasn't put his belt on yet. Of course, he's going straight to the pit lane where I'm sure they're going to do a driver's change.
Yeah, and then they'll let him go out and they'll give him a penalty.
Well, you know what? A lot of drivers, I did it too, on your last lap coming into the pits will undo their belt so you get that out of the way before you make your pit stop. But
the driver's meeting yesterday, he said absolutely categorically that he doesn't want to see people taking belts, radios, etc., off going down pit lane.
Yeah, well,
let alone half a lap before.
Well, maybe we shouldn't be showing this.
Dramatic stuff involving the SunTrust team, and now finally Max Angelelli has reached pit in, and there's the rescue squad.
Bill O'Reilly.
Angelelli has to settle himself down, get it back to the 45-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. Tense stuff down there, Cal.
Absolutely, and I mean, these boys are really pushing hard, trying to get that second position overall, and then look for a hiccup by the leaders. So they were rolling it. They wanted to try and get the car in here with just one more stop. They'll certainly be able to do that now, but they didn't intend to lose the ground that they just did. So an amazing drive by Max Angelelli really goes to north. So it'll be his teammate Collard jumping in here. Team will go to work. The car seems to be running fine, and we just have to assume that they had a miscalculation there on the mileage. And I would put it down to, once again, the lack of flat-out dry running that they've had with the car in testing and this weekend. And during the race, you really try and get a gauge from that. What they'll do typically is be very conservative in the first 2 or 3 stints, get a good accurate reading, and then they'll be able to stretch it. But this is really the first time that the car has run flat out, as Angelelli was just doing, running those low 50 laps.
Well, you think about that, qualifying was in, what was qualifying lap time? High, was it 145? High 145s. And he's been running in the low 150s with all this wet, all this moisture, all this gunk on the track. And here we have the reigning Le Mans 24-hour GT champion, Emmanuel Collard, a guy who is fast and experienced to take this SunTrust effort home.
Well, Angelelli had been schooled at least where the roads were, the escape roads. You see what he did was he pulled down onto the infield, didn't go for the chicane, he didn't try to go through the bus stop. Instead, he found an access road where his guys could get to him quickly with that 5 gallons of fuel. That was smart. Not all the guys around here study that stuff.
Calvin, what do you have?
Well, I have Max down here. Max, just a tremendous performance out there on the racetrack. Was it just a miscalculation on the mileage? You're pushing so hard, you're probably using a bit more juice on that stint.
We have to look what's happened, actually. We have to look. The car is, already 24 hours, so maybe something didn't work.
I know it's a heartbreaking situation for you, but you're back in the race. You're going to score good points. There's a long championship season ahead of you, but that doesn't mean much right now. You wanted to get that second position away and hope for problems with the leaders.
Yes, exactly. This is what I wanted.
Well, he gave it 10 tenths, guys. You got to pat him on the back for that.
Well, what about that quote from Andy Pilgrim before? He said, it's so long, it's so draining, it's so emotional. And that, yeah, you saw the emotions with Max Angelelli, virtually on the verge of tears. He put everything into this.
And after that drive he had, you see how much he's struggling with that 5 gallons? Yeah. He's been in that car struggling really hard for quite a long time. And that 5 gallons weighs a lot. It feels like it weighs about 500 pounds when you're that tired.
And of course, we just heard Max Crawford say when their car came in, the lead car came in with the wheel off, Max Crawford said, it is never over till it's over. He said, I've been here before and I've never ever won this race. Unfortunately, 2 of the times he never won this race was when you know who was driving. But
I give him a 10 on the can toss. That was great.
Little back flick. He could whip over to Houston this afternoon and help out a little bit. Let's get this into perspective. They are still on the podium. This team is still there. They've got a 2-lap buffer back to the lead GT car with an hour left to run in this race. So while you saw the disappointment on Angelelli's face, all is not done yet. We move up 1 position to this car, the 54 car for Bell Motorsports. Andy Pilgrim is driving. They are second, but some 4 laps down.
Takes a lot of pressure off this car, of course, because they were panicking that the 10 car would get them. Now they're pretty sure that in the hour remaining...
Tell you what, it picked Andy up too. He was running 207s and 208s. Now he's down to a 201, which is a competitive enough time that he won't be losing as much as he had been before.
Tony Stewart running in the 158, same time as Emmanuel Collard, doing a great job, but so too is the Doran Lister in the 158s, and so too is the Michael Shank car. So all the Daytona prototypes pretty similar times.
Look at the 2 GT cars.
GT cars
156. 156 and 157. Those guys are the fastest cars on the track right now, trying to run each other down in GT.
Chris, what do you have?
Well, I'm down here with Jim Bell. Jim, you guys were a bit concerned a little while ago because the 10 car was running you down so quick. They just had problems. Any reaction?
Yeah, they ran out of fuel, it looks like, but they've gassed it up and they're on their way again. Gives us a little bit of breathing room. We're not capable of running our typical speeds because we've got some heating problems. So we're doing the best we can to keep to hold position, and we need all the help we can get, even from those guys. So we appreciate what we get.
Have you been able to do anything about those heating problems, or is it just run what you have right now?
No, basically we have kind of blown the radiator out a little bit, topped off the fuel and the water, or the water and the oil, and that's about all we can do at this point. The rest is up to Pilgrim.
Calvin?
Well, Tony Stewart brings the number 2 machine in. I just spoke to Max Crawford. He said, no, we're just outside our fuel window, so they're taking this opportunity. Now they're well inside, they can go the rest of the way. To come in, do a routine stop. They don't want to cut tire down. I see a little bit of a delay here on the left rear, so I'm not, here we go. Now the nut is loose. The last thing you want is one of those wheel nuts to jam at this stage of the proceeding, so they'll top him up with fuel. I would assume they'll take a close look at this right front when they get that one loose. That's the one, of course, that came loose just a few moments ago. You see there, they got pretty lucky there. That spindle there is pretty heavily damaged. The threads on the spindle don't look the healthiest in the world, but right now the mechanic goes to work and he's going to tighten this thing up, button up, and hopefully Tony can get it to the checkered flag. So these boys look to be under control, but we still have an hour to run. A lot can happen here. It's been very dramatic in these last few moments.
Interesting to watch them just really take their time. Not rushing.
He didn't back that off and do it up again, though.
I actually noticed that he replaced one of the single mono hub wheel nuts. One of them he took off of the rear and then looked at it, and then he grabbed one off his belt, which they always carry a spare one, and put the fresh one on. So he must not have liked the threads or the way they looked on that nut.
That was on the left front.
Yeah.
So Stewart is sent back out, still in the lead, with laps on their side as far as the lead. And we are hearing reports from the ground. It is starting to sprinkle.
Usually some darts from the sky, though, not the ground.
With 57.5 minutes to go, the rain's going to come back. Great. If you weren't with us earlier today, we had, what was it? We had 3 hours under red flag. The track was just simply too wet. There was another 3-hour period early this morning between 3 and 6 under caution. That's how much this race has been rain affected. Calvin.
Well, there was a reason for Tony Stewart pitting other than fuel. We thought he'd try and stretch it out and come in for a splash at the end, but they're looking at the right rear. Tony had reported it didn't feel right. The wheel was tight. Dorsey mentioned they look at that nut carefully. It wasn't loose, and the tire has pressure. So we're going to have to watch this carefully and see if Tony Stewart has another issue over in the right rear corner of that Crawford chassis.
Building back up to speed, and everyone in that Crawford camp, the Howard Boss team, David Bruley and Rick Howard, Max Crawford, everybody watching on so intently. Stay with us, less than an hour to go.
Whispers in
Welcome back live to what should be a dramatic conclusion to the 42nd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. On top of everything else, we understand there is rain on the way. We have about 45 minutes or so still remaining in what has been a fascinating Rolex 24. Now here's the best battle on the racetrack right now. It's in the GT category. The 4th and 5th place cars in the overall are 1st and 2nd in class. There is the number 44 Orbit Racing Porsche. They have a lead of about 49.5 seconds over the 2nd place number 74 car. We'll be watching this battle closely. Here's Brian Till.
The guys down in the Orbit pit, they say they will have to stop and put fuel in that car, but they believe strongly that the 74 will also have to do that. They pitted pretty much together, but the 74 was in a couple laps before they were the last time, so they feel like he'll have to come in a couple of laps before they will. They will wait to make sure that the 74 is in before they come into fuel. The other unknown basically in this deal is how much drag does that lack of a rear window have in that Porsche? Is it creating enough drag and burning more fuel that they may have to come in a little bit early? They're not quite sure, guys.
It's a great point, Brian. There's no doubt about it. They will be burning more fuel and they're going slower down the straight. As Patrick Long said, that when they got out, it's just like a gigantic parachute, which it will be. Be sucking air in there, pulling the car back, so they'll be using more fuel and going slower down the straight. It's going to be nip and tuck for those guys.
I'll tell you another reason they're using more fuel is because they're running faster than any single car out there, with the exception of Tony Stewart, which they're matching. They're running laps of 156. That is flying. So whether it's got a windscreen at the back or not, it's not slowing up that much.
Lap 497 plays lap 496 for these two at the top of the GT tree, and it's the Red Bull Ferrari running 3rd in class. And the top SGS car, which is Jean-Francois Dumoulin, Robert Julian and co, they are inside the top 10 in 9th overall. But here's Johnny Mollem at the wheel of the Orbit Racing Porsche, and what a period of 6 or so months it's been for Orbit Racing. They finished on the podium at the Le Mans 24-hour. Different driver lineup, a different car. It was the 43 car there, but still Orbit Racing. And now here at the Rolex 24. And for Johnny Mollem, he's very good friends with some big-name drivers like David Brabham, Alan McNish, Johnny Herbert. And for all of this time, he's had to hang around those guys, see his good friend Alan McNish go off to Formula One, and Brabham win various things as well as Johnny Herbert. And Johnny was always, as we discussed last night when he was with us, he's always had to play second fiddle and be the runner-up guy. Finish second here, finish second there, finish second at Le Mans. And this could be the biggest win of his career, to take out the GT class at the Rolex 24. And he's done it with a great team. It's been a true team effort. Roger Hawley and the boys.
Look at the 74. Just cracked off a lap of 155.87. The fastest lapping car out there. These guys, you don't think they have the hammer down?
That's still Rockenfeller as well. Mike Rockenfeller doing an awesome job. Behind there's 3 Daytona prototypes at the top, and then these 2 GT cars. 2 more Daytona prototypes with the Doran Lister, and then it's the Michael Shank Doran as well. A GT car, the Ferrari, the Red Bull Ferrari, then it's the SGS car. And rounding out the top 10, and this is a solid effort to work their way back up into the top 10, is the Pruitt, Pappas, Scott Dixon, Jimmy Morales car. And as you heard Scott Pruitt mention earlier, that's Jimmy Morales' first run in the car. He was just not confidence was a little lacking out in those tricky and quite dangerous conditions last night, and as you can understand, that's a good decision. So Morales enjoying himself out there at the moment in drier conditions.
I'll tell you what, Collard now in the number 10 Daytona prototype, hammered down 150.9, so he's now trying to make a pursuit to get that second place wrestled away. Long way to go, but I mean, he's flying.
Great to see the Picchio still running, incidentally. This is a BMW-powered Picchio, the Italian chassis on the right of your screen, number 80. Just on the outside of Jimmy Morales. And I was talking with Price Cobb from G&W Motorsports, and he said, I've told all of the drivers, including Jason Workman, just drive within themselves in this race. Just keep chipping away, because as of last season, we know that this BMW, this Tom Milner BMW M5 motor will just keep going and going and going. The one engine went for the entire season. It didn't let them down. So they knew that that would give them out. And everything else is held up as well. a long way down the order, but the car is still out there. 26th position overall. Riding now with Andy Pilgrim. Let's take a listen.
And there goes the 74 car, so it just shows how off the pace Andy Pilgrim is.
Well, you heard him short shifting too. He's not running any revs at all. I'll tell you what, that 74 car, like I told you, it's ran a 155, so he's really going to town there. Of course, Pilgrim's in conserve mode, trying to keep the thing to the finish line.
The 24 machine, the Spectre Works sports car, the Team Highlander Corvette, still running. Very eventful start to their campaign with the car catching fire at the test down here. Then it blew up on Thursday. The team didn't give up. John Heinrichsey and the gang have done a nice job. Overall, this car well down the order in 35th position.
John Heinrichsey had a tremendous career in cars of this type, Corvettes, Camaros, just outstanding driver.
Of course, he designed
this type of car.
That might have helped him.
Senior engineer at GM as well, and of course we're going to see him full-time in the Grand Am Cup this year. He's going to be driving with Devon Powell. Those guys almost got the win the other day, earlier this weekend. So John's still very, very much on the pace.
No question about his driving ability, but like I say, he's speed has been his life. It's what he gets paid to do by GM, and they certainly put out some really fantastic machinery.
Feeding the power on slowly, coming out of that tight turn 6. Same there, goes across the apex before he nails it.
His car 41, the Planet Earth Motorsports Orison marketing car. This is the Nonamaker family car, and also the two Menards, Paul and Charlie Menard, in with this. These guys, it's been a very, very busy and big off-season for this team. Joe Nonamaker, the father, his two sons, Will and Wayne, and the Menards joining them once again. 5-driver lineup, and they're now running 4th in SGS. They had a troublesome time as well, and they've slowly just kept chipping away through the early hours of this morning, and obviously now, since the rain stopped, they have made a great comeback. As far as overall, they're sitting in 16th position, but 4th in SGS. Nice work for them and a great way to start the season.
Collard now in the 10 is supposed to get a faster lap, 1:49.7. 6 seconds a lap, almost 7 seconds faster.
Yeah, Manuel Collard really hanging out there, really putting the pedal to the metal, as Ken Squire used to say, but unfortunately that fatal gas stop cost him dearly. Still 2 laps behind the 54 car, and we're only just over half an hour. I don't think he can make it up even at 10 seconds a lap.
You know, you drive a second a lap faster by giving it all you've got, and then a fuel stop thing like that costs you in the minute, so you never get
It's terrible, and it's just so depressing for a driver when things like that go wrong.
And whilst the team continue to look, and Pat Long remains in the cockpit of the 66, unfortunately, it's looking more and more like the day is done for the reigning winners, the reigning champions of the Rolex 24, the Racers Group 66. Kevin Buckler does not give in. He never says no, never says stop, never says that's it. So they will continue to try and get this car back out there. As far as overall, they're still in 13th and about 5th in class.
So they're mopping up a leak or something, throwing a bunch of towels down there. That's never a good sign either.
But what a week. I mean, what an absolutely disastrous week.
Well, I wonder with all
Kevin Buckler's had.
With all the rain it drove through, you think it finally washed the smell away from the burning? It certainly got a bath.
And if you didn't catch any of our coverage yesterday or didn't hear any, that's the that looked like the Sitco Crawford running off there, the Spirit of Daytona car back on track now.
He's been
thankfully
cracking out some good times, actually. We're not taking much notice of him because he's 100 odd laps down after poor old Robbie Gordon smoked the wall coming out of the chicane yesterday afternoon. But it's Doug Goad is cracking out some good times. He's down in the 158s, which is where
Zach Collard just passed the leader, I think, and got a lap back. I believe that's what we just saw.
Doug Goad's going to do the season with this car. Is that Angelelli in front of him?
There's Tony Stewart. I think Stewart just slowed and let Collard by. That's good.
Problems for the race leading car, Tony Stewart.
He short shifted it. He got there. Oh, right rear looks.
That's that trouble corner too that Calvin was talking about.
Just keep an eye on that.
There's definitely a problem down here, boys. The crew is setting up. They're going to bring him in. They're in radio communication. There's some kind of problem on that lead machine.
Well, the other Crawford, the other Howard Boss car retired many, many laps ago and is now scored in 25th position.
Something's banging.
On the banking there, you got an RC mechanical knot. Was that the differential, do you think, as you go around the banking?
Or something bottoming, possibly.
Tony said he had some kind of vibration. That's why they pitted him a short while ago and changed that right rear. They thought it was a puncher possibly. They didn't see anything.
The car is definitely sitting down on the right rear corner, isn't it? Because the left front is just missing the ground every now and then.
It is. See the right rear jumping up and down?
Yeah. I'd say the right rear suspension is let go or...
Here, look.
Dragging on the floor.
Definitely on the right rear.
He is at pit in right now. This is pressure cooker stuff now for the Crawford boys and Howard Boss Motorsport. They've got about a 3-lap lead over Andy Pilgrim.
How do you think the 10 car's going to feel when they come second? Talk about it, ain't over till it's over.
It's always the last hour too, isn't it? Always.
What do you see down there, Cal?
Well, I see when he came in, the right rear lock, which meant it didn't have the wheel rate on the ground, and they're just trying to get it off. So there's some kind of suspension breakage or something that's collapsed back here. I can't see right now. They haven't taken the bodywork off yet, which I'm a bit surprised at. So they can take a good look underneath there. They're going to need to if they're going to work on the car, I'd assume, and get this bodywork out of the way. So Max Crawford said, look at it and try and tell me what's going on. So they got the mechanics looking underneath there. I don't see anything wrong, so...
It's one of the crushing things about endurance racing.
They've got to take the bodywork off to have a look at it properly.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see it's down on the right rear.
There you go. Body off, he said.
Andy Pilgrim has just crossed through again, so the margin is now 2 laps. They've got that buffer to get this fixed and get back out and retain their lead.
They're trying to tighten up the spring and try and give it a bit more ride-eye over here. I don't know whether there's something maybe gone missing in the shock absorber itself, which is then taking the spring rate off this right rear corner. If that is the case, they may be able to do a quick fix here.
Look at that, bro. They've got
oh, now we see something loose.
It's broken.
Yeah, something on the bell housing. The pivot point looks like it's loose there when they went to move it. So that had taken the preload out of that spring, and they're going to have to change that, but that could be integral with the whole bell housing there.
You're looking at the Bell Motorsports team watching on. They are the second place team, with Andy Pilgrim driving the car and representing the reigning Rolex Series champion, Terry Borchella. The margin is now less than 2 laps. That's less than 4 minutes. And look at the Howard Boss team. Max Crawford and his guys go to work to try and fix this up.
Well, Max has won this race before, but I tell you, when you go to pieces of wood here to try and get a race car back to the finish, I can't see this thing working for 30 minutes. A couple of laps maybe. I'm not sure even Tony Stewart's skill can get this thing up to speed and try and win this one.
I think they're trying to wedge that piece of 2x4 in there so it limits the suspension travel into droop factor so that wheel can't fall down. They're trying to jam it in there. It won't handle well that way, but it'll keep the bodywork up off of the asphalt. That's what they're trying to do.
There's Pilgrim completing another lap. It'll trim the timing and scoring monitor now. So it's now 5:10 laps, plays 5:09. And Andy Pilgrim is closing in.
They're giving up on that. You see what they're going to do now. They've run that shock up, like Calvin said, to try to get the right rear ride heights back higher, but they don't have time to fix it. They're send it back out.
The bulkhead that it's attached to keeps bending it, but
it'll break.
They can run the spring up as much as they like, but it's not going to do it.
They sent Tony Stewart, and he is still in the lead of this Rolex 24 at Daytona race. Talk about pressure. After running for 23.5 hours.
Now there's a team that does need rain now.
Yes.
To try and take some load off the car.
This car has been the lead car for the majority of this race. Andy Wallace, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the man driving now, Tony Stewart, to come within less than 40 minutes of the checkered flag and have this. We are set
left
for an
side pod
exciting
dragging
finish.
on the floor, the right side pod about an inch and a half above the ground.
Well, his left front's going to be completely in the air, isn't it? I mean, the right rear's going to be banging on the chassis.
Yeah.
Left front's going to be off the ground. Look, it's not going to handle very well, Tony. Hold on to her, buddy.
You look at the gap between the bodywork there on the ground, and you look at the other side.
Let's hear from a very integral man in this operation, Max Crawford's with Cal.
Well, we'll try and put the microphone in here.
Do you copy that?
He's talking to Tony. The crew are scrambling around here trying to think of ideas on how they can try and keep that corner up in the air a little bit more. They got tie downs, all sorts of things that the mechanics are kind of putting in front of Max's eyes, but this guy is a magician, but he's going to perform a miracle here. He's going to try and get this two-Sitco machine up to speed. And now he looks at the monitor. He's trying to analyze what the gap is, how much time they have to play with, what sort of lap time they need to achieve to try and win this one, Bob.
It's funny how life works sometimes. In addition to all of his driving chores, Tony Stewart owns a team in the O'Reilly's World of Outlaws series, the barnstorming winged sprint car drivers. His driver is a guy named Danny Lasoski, a former series champion, and last year at the biggest event of the winged sprint car season, the Knoxville Nationals in Knoxville, Iowa, Tony Stewart's man Danny Lasoski won the race despite driving the closing laps with a broken shock at the rear of his car and a rear wheel flopping around in the breeze. The boss is going to have to try to do something similar to win the Rolex 24.
Here he comes, still in the lead to complete yet another lap. All right, let's hear from Max Crawford now.
Max, you've analyzed the situation. What do you think you can do?
Nothing in the time that we have left.
What's failed on the car exactly? Can you make that out?
Right rear rocker mount is cracked. That's, the car's drooping on the right rear. We'll just do the best we can.
What sort of time do you have to play with? I mean, is it possible for Tony to keep the car at speed?
It's going to be difficult for him, but I mean, he just did a 210, so we'll do the best we can.
All right, mate. He's still smiling.
Well, we saw lockup obviously on the right front, which is no longer touching the ground. It's something Tony's going to have to be aware of and really start watching that he doesn't more damage, go off the road and hit something or flat spot a tire to where he has to bring it in.
If he has to make a sudden move or a sudden braking moment, if anybody gets in front of him and he's got any sort of attitude on the car at all, as we saw there, the left front just locking up, not getting any steering and not getting much braking.
Andy Pilgrim is 1 lap and about 1 minute behind Tony Stewart. The pressure is on.
Back at Daytona International Speedway, how often have we seen this happen at the Rolex 24 at Daytona? In the closing minutes of the race, problems for the front runners. This is the number 10 car. We saw Max Angelelli run out of fuel, have to haul a fuel tank over to the car to get it into the pits. Emmanuel Collard took over, and a car that threatened for the win in this race is now third with what is reported to be a broken CV joint. Calvin, what can you tell us?
Well, that's exactly right. I just spoke to Wayne Taylor. He said, I believe it's the CV joint. Now, we see some fluid coming out here, which is brown. Now, I've never seen a team go to work like this. They poured 2 cans of Coca-Cola on that. Now, that's something I've never seen before, Dorsey and David. Maybe you can help me out here. Not just trying to cool it with water, Coca-Cola. So I'm unsure about that one. Right now, the car is stationary. I'm not sure if they're going to get him back out.
Well, you saw a lot of clag under there. All around that suspension is covered in road clag, and Coca-Cola has a special ingredient which is like a clag remover.
We hear it starting to sprinkle, believe it or not. Some of these guys are looking for rain. There's that Coca-Cola right there.
Yeah. Plenty happening in the top 5 because the top GT car is poised to take that 3rd place away from the SunTrust Daytona prototype. Tony Stewart is fighting off the increasing challenge from Andy Pilgrim. All the while, the rain has come back to Daytona International Speedway. It is raining on the back stretch of the track. And look at this, your race leader, Tony Stewart, the 2002 NASCAR champion, limping, trying to get this wounded car to the checkered flag in just 30 minutes' time.
Got a good half hour of this to put up with, too, and it's going to rain again. What more can you do, or what more can you endure?
Well,
it's getting worse. You see the tire just touched down there.
Left front is
left front was in the air all the way until I just saw it touch.
Well, he had been doing good lap time. He had got it down as fast as a 2:02. But it's going to be hard to maintain decent lap times fighting this Sitco Crawford. And we have heard that the 10 car, the SunTrust Pontiac Riley, is done for the day. Let's hear from the team owner, Wayne Taylor.
Well, Wayne jumps over the wall. He's gone over to give a pat on the back to one of his co-drivers here, Emmanuel Collard. A valiant effort by these guys. And Wayne, let's get a quick word with you, mate. I mean, it's been a strong run by you boys. You really gave it a great effort. But what put you out ultimately?
It seems like a drive shaft, and it's shared the axle. There's 35 minutes to go. We could change the rear end, but there's no way we're going to get it to the end. We gave it everything we had, and these two guys, the team, I don't know what to say. It's just amazing. I mean, I know Jim France said this is going to come down to the last hour of the event. I'm sorry he ever said that.
Talk about the Coca-Cola. I've seen water go over the wall to try and cool something down. With those 2 cans of Coke, like some special ingredient, you're trying to get that CV back together?
Yeah, I don't know what that was, what that was about. Maybe it's had some brandy in it. I don't know.
All right, mate. We'll see you at Homestead. Great run.
Thanks.
The rear. Look at the right rear.
Oh.
You know what he might have done, David? He might have, knowing it's locked in the front, he might have cranked the brake bias all the way to the rear to try to help that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he's done. And, of course, the pressure is suddenly off these guys enormously because they're still lapping, well, not much slower than the Borcello car.
You're riding with Tony Stewart, and listen to the car. Listen to that scraping.
Well, that's in the infield. Wait till you see it go up on the bank.
What do you think he's listening? Gosh.
Well, let's have a listen as he approaches the banking. Let's ride with Stewart and listen.
He's up on the banking now.
The faster it goes, the more the rear wing will push that into the ground. And it'll start scraping.
Not too bad. It's all worn out. Nothing left to scrape.
Hey guys, it makes me wonder what Joe Gibbs is thinking. I'm sure he's getting ready to settle down and watch the Super Bowl later today, but he's got his star driver Tony Stewart out there running about 185 miles an hour, literally on 2 wheels at times, with the Daytona 500 about 2 weeks away.
Well, the thing that would be making me most nervous as far as Tony is if that with that rocker mounting cracked, whether it finally came adrift and the wheel did a supermarket trolley move and swung out, you know, with attached at the bottom end but not on the top end.
We now officially have a GT car on the Rolex 24 podium. The Orbit Porsche with Johnny Mollem at the wheel is in the top 3 overall standings. And this car pitting, this is the second class car for GT, the Flying Lizard Porsche. Mike Rockenfeller seems like he's been in there forever. He is so fast, this young German, and they've just kept him in there to take it to the flag. Chris.
That's right, Lee. He has been in the car for a while. These guys said that because we were under red flag conditions, that was considered a rest for him. So he's been in the car since probably about 5 o'clock this morning, or literally. But this was definitely the last stop. They got new tires in the car. They got enough fuel to go. So now he's just trying to run down the 44.
At the moment, Andy Pilgrim in second place, chasing our race leader, Tony Stewart. There's about a 15-second difference to the favor of Pilgrim in their lap time. So with some 26 minutes left, Andy could get back on the lead lap and should be able to catch this car. Talk about high drama. We've heard these cars described as bulletproof. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has thoroughly enjoyed driving this car. So too Andy Wallace, the man right in the middle of the development of this car, and appropriately he is with Calvin right now.
Andy, you've won this race several times, as of all of the classic races, but I know you've seen a few slip away, but have you ever come down to the finish of one with a car that's wounded as it is for Tony driving right now and try to get it to the finish?
Well, I'll say it's really a disappointment
disappointment because everybody's done such a great job and we've almost got there, but now we've got a pretty bad problem at the rear. But hey, there's only, what, 13 laps or so to go. You never know what can happen still.
He seems to be managing to actually run a decent lap time. Have you calculated if he continues at that pace? Do you have enough in hand?
I was just trying to calculate that, but my brain's a bit frazzled. I'm going to have another go in a minute, but he's doing a really great job because he's not got all the wheels on the ground all the time. But if anybody can do it, he can, so we'll just keep him in there.
All right, mate, good luck. Back to you, Lee.
Thanks, Cal. Nice to hear from Andy. And the GT class leading car in third overall pits and is sent for the final time. Mollem is on his way to a class victory if he can hold off the challenge from Flying Lizard and will stand on the podium overall. And just highlighting the fact that in endurance sports car racing, it really isn't over until the checkered flag. For Kevin Doran and his men, Didier Tays, Freddie Leinhardt, Jan Lammers and Mark Goosens, they're in fourth at the moment and about to take over third in terms of the Daytona prototype class. They've had a dreadful weekend with the whole qualifying procedure. They failed to hand in their paperwork in time to nominate the qualifying driver. They qualified outside the top 30. They've had accidents, they've had damage, they've had radiator problems, and they have just kept on chipping away, and they stand a shot at being on the DP podium.
What you have to remember is that the GT cars, both that are racing one another, and for overall for that matter, are healthy. Both of the cars in front of them, the prototypes, are both wounded to some degree. Of course, the lead car wounded quite severely. Will it go a half hour? I don't know, but for Tony Stewart as a driver, he is total concentration right now, feeling every bit of that and doing everything he can to keep it in one piece.
For a guy that's used to racing those midgets on dirt, with that left front wheel off the deck, of course, he's used to driving cars with the left front wheel about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the floor. And if anybody can nurse it, but obviously he's got to be careful on that flat spotting of that left front. If he lets it well and truly off the deck there. As he
Look,
comes
it
up
doesn't
on the
even touch on the bank till right up in here. Finally, right there.
Just slowly going around. I mean, it is only just touching.
It has been a memorable Rolex 24 for many, many reasons. A star-studded lineup with NASCAR drivers like Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Petty, Robbie Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson. IRL IndyCar star Scott Dixon, Christian Fittipaldi as well. And as we look at the overall standings on screen at the moment, the big battle is Pilgrim zeroing in on Stewart and Rockefeller on Mollem. The battle between DP and GT.
It's 10 seconds difference between Andy Pilgrim being the faster over Tony Stewart.
It's not enough.
A solid 10 seconds a lap. That is not enough as long as Tony can keep the car running at the pace he's running right now and it doesn't break completely on him.
And it is beginning to rain harder and harder here at Daytona International Speedway. We have had, I think, what was the stat before? For only the 4th time in the history of this race, we had a red flag earlier today. We were in a red flag situation for some 3 hours. Earlier in the day, there was 3 hours of caution where the competitors were just cruising because the track was so wet. Like I said, it's been a memorable race for a variety of reasons, and it is far from over. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Tony Stewart, Andy Wallace, biting their nails at the moment.
You're looking live at pit lane at Daytona International Speedway, and just when it appeared that the 42nd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona could not get any more dramatic, it has, as the skies have opened once again over the speedway. Andy Pilgrim, who briefly passed the crippled car of Tony Stewart to get back on the lead lap, then ducked into the pits for treaded wet weather tires. Stewart remains on the track with a broken right rear suspension. He doesn't need new tires because he's only got 2 wheels on the ground at any one time. The most dramatic drive I think I have ever seen in 25 years of covering motorsports. Stewart, the 2002 NASCAR champion, is trying to hold off this man, a former Rolex winner, Andy Pilgrim. Let's go to Chris Neville.
Well, that was a pretty quick stop for these guys. All they did was wet weather tires there. They're still trying to cool the car. They cleaned out the radiator a little bit and then sent Andy back out there. I think this was a pretty smart decision because this rain came in very quickly. So Andy ducked into the pits. I think the track is in pretty bad shape and Tony's still out there in slicks. Lee.
Yeah, great work by Bell Motorsports. You're looking now at the wounded car of Tony Stewart. For Howard Boss Motorsports, a Chevrolet-powered Crawford. This is the debut drive for this car and its sister car, the 04 and the third Crawford, the 09 Spirit of Daytona. 3 is still running. Sadly, the Jimmy Johnson, Bush Leitzinger, Elliott Forbes Robinson car is out. And there they are, both Crawfords on track together. And look at Tony Stewart weaving side to side and conditions out there. He's gone.
Oh, he's lost the left rear. Left rear is completely broken, David, like you thought it might. That will end that.
Wow.
He was fighting
of course,
the car.
the other side to the right rear is broken. The right rear.
Yeah, it's the left rear that's
left rear is gone now.
Now the left rear is gone.
And there is Jim Bell, poised to take this Rolex 24 with 17.5 minutes remaining. And look at the despair on Tony Stewart's face.
Well, I tell you what, the man I'm really sorry for here is Max Crawford. Max Crawford put his everything into this car. Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr. have won a lot of races. Andy Wallace has won this race 3 times, but poor Max Crawford's put so much into this car, and it's obviously going to be a pretty good car. And just so near the end like that, just 15 minutes, 20 minutes ago.
And here comes Andy Pilgrim. He goes back onto the lead lap as of now after passing the stranded Tony Stewart. And once he comes around one more time, he will be the new race leader with 17 minutes to go. And look at Stewart. He can't move. He's tried to get the car going, and he is stranded.
He knows he's done it, and he knows he's got it won. It's just the way it goes. One guy elated, the other, you saw it in his eyes.
Well, this will mean a beef up on the Crawford rear suspension, but of course, don't forget these cars have raced for a lot longer than they would normally. Although it means that these cars still need, these Daytona prototypes still need a bit of work doing to beef them up just a little bit more, because don't forget we've actually only raced for about 18 hours or less.
Let's have a look at the replay here. Watch him fighting the car in the closing stages of this, just as that the left rear is going.
He's got no wheels on the ground, so he can't brake very well. It's going to get it twitching around. But the other side, right rear is getting a twitch. It's about to break right in here.
Look at that, the left rear just does, like I said, the supermarket trolley move. It's attached at the bottom.
Here's the onboard view.
A very relieved Joe Gibbs at home.
What a bad deal that was.
Within 17 minutes of the finish, and this car has led more laps than any other. And Tony Stewart, the 2002 NASCAR champion, gets out and puts a period on his Rolex 24 campaign. Crushing stuff. Both of those Howard Boss cars not finishing this race, but both two of the strongest cars in this field. And there is Andy Pilgrim to officially take the lead of this race as of now. The Bell Motorsports Pontiac powered Doran, the car that Terry Borchella drove to the very first Daytona Prototype Championship last year. They could even start the 2004 season in a better way, taking the Rolex 24. Well, Stewart's crushed, so too Dale Earnhardt and Andy Wallace. But what about this man that's with Calvin now?
Well, there's big hugs down here in the Crawford pit. Max and his crew have done such a tremendous job, and Max, this has to be a heartbreaker to get so close with Tony in the lead.
It's happened before, you know that. With Rob, we've had a motor blow up, I think, with 23. Le Mans, 23 and change, lost again, so it happens. It was meant to be this way, and that's the way it is. I can't be upset about the way the cars ran. The boys did a fantastic job. They did everything they could, and all my guys have done an absolutely splendid job of building these cars. I think the cars are fast. I think we got somewhere to go from here. I'm ecstatic. Yeah, I'm brokenhearted about this, but hey.
As you mentioned, Tony Stewart's probably got a future in this game, right?
Yeah, I think he probably has. I think Junior might have surprised himself how good a road race he is too. They've done a great job, and I can't forget Andy Wallace for all of the hard work he's put into the test programs and so forth on this. And unfortunately, he got sick at the end there, but well, I really appreciate what they've done for me.
Well, Max, congratulations on a great performance, and you're a class act, mate.
Thank you very much.
tell you what, you got to give Max Crawford absolutely 10 out of 10 for taking it on the chin there. I mean, with that smile there, and he knows he's got a good car. He knows he's got a very fast car for the championship coming up, and I'm sure we're going to have success out of these Crawford cars. But boy, oh boy, I mean, that is pretty much a blow to the pit of the stomach with just a few minutes to go. To look and sound as cheery as that and take it like that is pretty outstanding. Shows what sort of a guy he really is.
And while this has been the headline news, there is a thrilling battle going on here involving the 44 car on screen right now. Johnny Molam has a 31-second, that's it, after nearly 24 hours of time. He only has 30 seconds over the Flying Lizard Porsche of Mike Rockenfeller. He is running, he's defending, and he wants this GT class victory. Third overall at the moment, sensational effort, and they may even move as high as second. In fact, they should move as high as second overall.
And of course, this is the last thing he wants. The last thing he wants to be held up with is by a Daytona prototype that's not as quick as he is through the corners, but obviously every time they get to the straight bits, pulls ahead, and it's blocking him really, and effectively bulking him. He just doesn't need that right now.
Here is the car that's doing all the chasing.
The 74 car going around the International Horseshoe just a few hundred yards behind the 44 car of Johnny Molam. Johnny Molam about to go into turn 7.
With less than 12 minutes to go, the SGS class has been absolutely dominated by Doncaster Racing. They still lead the way from TPC Racing. Randy Popst and the boys. Whoa, hang on to it, Mike. Rockenfeller. And third in that class is the second Doncaster car, so it's been a superb performance from the boys from Toronto, that's for sure. And there's going to be some interesting results here with 11 and a half minutes to go, and with cars still active, overtaking the cars that are now retired. Didier Taze and the Doran Lister may easily find themselves second in the Daytona prototype class, and that would be nice reward for Kevin Doran and his team after all their troubles.
They probably. Well, will they? They got to get.
They're on 5:14. They've got to get 5 more laps in time, so
it's going to be a bit difficult.
It's going to be tight.
But the thing is, the amazing thing is that these two GT cars, the 44 and 74, are going to end up second and third overall.
Yeah. Just got to note that at this pace, we've got about 6 or 7 laps remaining. Brian.
You know, it's a game of poker down here, guys. Both teams were out looking at the sky, and I listened to Mike Fitzgerald talking to Roger Hawley and Robin Liddell, and they were talking about whether to put reins on, and they had a big discussion going on about whether or not the Flying Lizard guys were going to come in and put reins on. They didn't want to be the first on pit road, because if they were, then that 74 car would stay out and it would build a lead on them. And so there's a big game of who's going to come to pit lane first. They're looking at the sky right now. It's not raining hard enough to do that. But this isn't just the battle for second overall and first in GT. Don't forget that the 54 car, it is wounded. We know that it has problems. We've seen cars, it only takes 1 lap, 1 corner to go out. It could be the battle for the overall win. We saw a GT car win here last year, Lee.
Brian, what's happening with the rain? Is it easing up? It looks like it from up here.
Well, it has eased up a little bit, but don't forget this is a 3.5-mile racetrack. It is a huge facility, and what it's doing here in pit lane has nothing to do with what it's doing over, let's say, on the bus stop. A racetrack this size, it can be raining hard on one end and literally sunny on the other.
Well, standing up here in the booth, I can tell you that every horizon you look at is pretty gloomy. Clouds right down into the trees to our east. To our west, the horizon has almost disappeared, so there's a lot of rain lurking about. And I give it to these boys who are driving on slick tires at the moment. That's a real lottery, but no one's going to be blinked first. But on the other hand, if you go off the road on slicks at this sort of speed, I mean, you're not going to stop once you start going. You're going to keep going.
They're forcing their own issue, because obviously if the 44 came in and got tires, then the other would not come in. It'd go for the advantage of not having to stop with this short a distance left in the race, 6-7 laps. So it almost forces the hand to continue on this
I think they're down to probably just only 2 or 3 laps, aren't they, at this
yeah, I mean, I would not come in for any tires right now.
Well, that lead has been whittled down to 19 seconds. The 74 Flying Lizard car is doing just that. It is really zeroing in on the Orbit Porsche now. And look at this man, the race leader, Andy Pilgrim. You talk to him, he's such a nice guy, and one of the highlights of his entire racing career is the time that he spent here in 2001 in that Chevrolet Corvette with the late Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jr. when they drove to 4th place He thoroughly enjoyed his time there. He's had a lot to do with Dale Jr. since. And that sad news, that crushing news of those guys after leading the majority of this race are out. If you've just joined us, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tony Stewart, Andy Wallace for Crawford and Howard Boss, they're out. Both Howard Boss cars are out of this race, and you're looking at the race leader with 8 minutes to go of this 24-hour classic.
Just about 4 laps. Speed they're doing just under 4 laps.
It doesn't look like it's raining, so.
And he's in cruise mode, isn't he? Looking around, being careful, preserving the car, just cruising.
It's not raining much, but it is slick.
Well, let me tell you about the cruising right now. The 2 GT cars ran at 2:01, and Andy's running at 2:17, so 16-second lap difference. That's cruising.
Calvin's with Tony Stewart. Cal?
Well, we caught up with Tony. Tony, what a heartbreaker, mate. You gave it everything.
Yeah, it's. I told him I wanted hazard pay for driving on 2 wheels, but evidently a rocker was breaking, which you know, that's your spring on the right rear corner. That was what the first major problem was, and it just kept getting worse and worse. But it was, I could run fast enough times to still pull away from second and you know, be in good shape to win this thing. But what put us out was the left rear tire came off the rim and turned sideways, and I told him it was happening before, and he said it was still on there, but I told him I knew I was right on the backstretch, and sure enough, when I got out of the gas, the wheel came off and spun the car, and without the rocker on the right rear, it basically just was flat bottom. It didn't have none of the tires on the rear were on the ground.
Amazing the sort of lap times that you're able to run literally on 2 wheels. You're used to having that left front up in the air at times, but over the course of your career, but this was something else in the rain particularly.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun last night. You know, I had a real bad second stint. We tried the harder rain tire, and I spun 3 times on my outlap, and we went back to the soft tires, and I was back to running 202s again. So, you know, the neat thing is that, you know, Citgo and General Motors with the Corvette engine and the Crawford family, I mean, this was a really neat package for this week, and having Andy Wallace and Dale Jr. as a teammate, you know, it was just a very, very fun weekend.
Tony, we're going to see you back. I know you've enjoyed the experience with Dale. We're going to see you back next year.
Hell yeah, we're going to win this thing.
All right, man, great job.
He probably will too.
Yeah, what a job. Did a great job. Huge crowd there lining the fence, watching him. 5.5 minutes to go, and look at this. Andy Pilgrim is coming into pit lane. And we're hearing that they are going to put the car owner in, Forrest Barber, the man who improved immensely throughout season 2003 with the guidance of his good friend and driver, Terry Borchella. And Chris, update us on this situation.
Lee, that's just right. They are going to put Forrest Barber in this car. You know, Forrest really was a class act last year. They had a slow start to the year, so it didn't look good for him. But as he and Terry started winning races, brought Terry back into the championship, and then Forrest had to step out of the car when his daughter was injured. So that kind of took him out of the championship. So the latter half of the year, whenever they had a chance to win, and Forrest would step out of the car and say, hey, Andy, you go help Terry out so we can get this championship. And that's exactly what happened. So the team is really paying him back here. He has not been in the car yet. This is his first time in the car. It looks like they've got this thing clinched. So they said, hey, Forrest, why don't you go out there and win it for us?
Great stuff. Nice to see the Texan get a drive to finish this off and take the checkered flag. 4.5 minutes to go. But this GT battle is intensifying. And as of now, the 44 Orbit Porsche has moved into second place overall. And just 12 seconds back is Mike Rockenfeller. Johnny Mollem is running, pushing as hard as he can in this car, and we now have 2 GT cars on the overall podium. Sensational stuff from these 2 teams.
Rockenfeller 4 seconds a lap quicker on that lap, so he's cutting into it pretty good here.
Oh, he's 12 seconds behind and got 3 minutes to go. Johnny Mollem really having to learn to use all his racecraft here.
This is close. Look in the background. Here's Mollem at the front of the screen, and at the top of the screen should be Mike Rockenfeller. And it is. Here he comes. The young German is flying.
Once he can see him, gets visual on him in eye lock, look out, buddy.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, Rockefeller obviously really earning his dough now. He's supposed to be the young hot shoe from Germany, and he's certainly proving it now to be 4 seconds a lap quicker than somebody like Johnny Mollem. Is pretty extraordinary.
He is a Porsche factory driver. As we've mentioned, teammate to American Pat Long. He has won in Carrera Cup racing. He finished third in the championship. But there is a difference between these two cars as far as tires.
Right now, he's running on slicks, which is quite amazing because of the speed. Of course, he's got them up to temperature, and they're good. It's not pouring down rain, but I'll tell you what.
Slicks, when it's slick, are okay. When it puddles up, they're hopeless.
Well, we've just heard that we are going to see the white flag next time by for Forrest Barber, the car owner of the 54 Pontiac-powered Doran. For Bell Motorsports, they just secured new sponsorship before this race, literally days before this race, with Kodak EasyShare. And what a moment to come on board. There is Forrest Barber, and he will cruise home. He will see the white, do one more lap of Daytona International Speedway, and be a Rolex 24 winner. Here comes the Doran into the bus stop. So he's less than half a lap from the white flag. Meanwhile, there's only 10 seconds now between Mollem and Rockefeller. The fight for the GT battle. Mike Rockefeller needs to pull out a stellar final lap and a half to catch and get by Johnny Mollem. It is achievable.
It is achievable because Forrest Barber is going pretty slowly himself. It's going to be a few seconds yet before he gets that white flag, which gives Rockefeller just that much more time to pass Johnny Mollem. Johnny Mollem wishes the white flag had already been shown, which would only give them one lap to go.
The white flag is out as Forrest Barber takes it right now. One lap to go before we see the checkered flag at the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Forrest Barber's driving so slow, he's got an engine stutter. You hear it misfiring. I think it's because he's in real low, tall gear with low RPM. I hope so. We don't want trouble on the last lap for right now.
Here's Mike Rockefeller chasing as hard as he can, trying to get Johnny Mollem. Meanwhile, Didier Taze and co, the guys in the Doran Lister, will overtake Andy Wallace, Dale Jr. and Tony Stewart to get second place in the Daytona prototype category and fourth overall. And Mollem, he is on his way to see that white flag as well. With Rockefeller hot in pursuit. There's the gap, and it's substantial enough, I think. I think Mollem should hold him up. He's going to need something extra special.
You can see the rain is falling pretty heavily on this camera here.
Plus, Johnny put his boot in it, too, because they ran that lap time exactly only a second different from each other, not 4 or 5 seconds different.
Here's your race leader, Forrest Barber. The team, and let's not, it's always easy to talk about Pilgrim and the reigning champion Terry Borchella. Let's not forget former Champ Car star and now NASCAR driver Christian Fittipaldi, because he did a wonderful job last night in the rain and these slippery, tricky conditions.
Look at that thing misfire when he gets on it. I mean, it's jerking around something fierce.
This time last year, this car barely made it to the track. It went on to win the championship, and now it will win the Rolex 24 here at Daytona.
Barber's heart must be in his mouth because he just knows that the track is slippery. I mean,
it's bucking like a wild bronco right now. It's not happy, so I'd want to get over here to our side real quickly.
And for all 4 drivers in this car, it will mark their first overall victory at the Rolex 24. Borchella and Pilgrim have been class winners, but it's the big one for all of them. And Forrest Barber is bringing it home. Into the bus stop for the final time. The Spirit of Daytona Crawford tucked in behind. And that team, congratulations to them. They have soldiered on. They didn't stop. They didn't give up. They wanted to finish this race, and that's exactly what they will do. As Forrest Barber enters NASCAR 3 for the final time. Jim Bell and Terry Borchella, Forrest Barber, what a combination they were last year to win the Rolex Series. They go one better now. They finished last year on a high. They begin 04 with an enormous high. There he is, the car owner, Forrest Barber. The checkered flag is in sight, and the Texan will lead his out the GT class.
Just a few seconds in front of the 74 car, and the GT cars come second and third overall. Forrest Barber absolutely ecstatic and no doubt incredibly relieved that it's all over.
And we wait for our SGS winner to come on home, and it's the Doncaster Porsche. This team of Greg Pootmans, Mark Lee, Jean-Francois Dumoulin and Robert Julian had been on top almost the entire time in that SGS class. Sensational stuff for the guys north of the border. But there's your overall race winner, Forrest Barber, along with Pilgrim, Borchella and Fittipaldi. We'll hear from all the winners when we return.
Back live at Daytona International Speedway, car owner Forrest Barber makes perhaps the most famous turn in sports car racing into victory lane here at Daytona International Speedway. Overall winners at the 42nd Rolex 24 at Daytona. Appropriately enough, as the car owner, he was put into the car to take the checkered flag after a terrific effort. Teamed up with Andy Pilgrim, Christian Fittipaldi, and last year's Daytona prototype champion, Terry Borcheller. This is a moment he will remember forever. Fireworks overhead. That's about all we've missed in this amazing 24-hour race. Incredible weather, yellow flags, red flags, astonishing driving performances. They say no one ever remembers who finished second, much less who didn't finish at all. But I think we've all learned this week that any list of the best drivers in the world, longer than about 3, that doesn't have the name Tony Stewart on it, is utterly bogus. He gave it everything he had, driving on 2 wheels to try to hold off this car and this team. There's Christian Fittipaldi congratulating his car owner.
Man, good job.
But Stewart and teammates Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Andy Wallace were unable to hold on and win. Here's a look at the Daytona Prototype Class standings. Victory for Barber Motorsports and their Pontiac Doran. Jan Lammers brings the Lexus Doran. The Lista team home in second place. Tony Stewart and company finish in third, but not running at the finish. Then the 6 of Mike Newton in another Lexus Doran. Further back in the field, another of the Crawford chassis. Butch Leitzinger aboard finished 8th. And colleague Jack Baldwin makes the top 10. Paul Newman and his team in a Porsche-powered Fab car suffered mechanical problems and retired earlier. Let's get down to Chris Neville in victory lane.
Forrest, you guys were here 12 months ago. The team wasn't quite ready for the 24-hour race at that point in time. Terry came away the champion at the end of the year. It's got to feel pretty good what can happen in 12 months.
It is astounding what can happen in 12 months. Actually, it's pretty astounding what can happen in 24 hours. I mean, this team has worked so hard, you know, for a year to get ready for this day, and here we are in Victory Circle. It's really amazing. It's just unbelievable to be here.
Well, Terry Borcheller's just stepped up. Terry, you're the reigning champion of this series. About 7 o'clock this morning, you guys were trying to catch up with that 2 car. It was a real roller coaster ride from there. You had some problems. Finally, they had some problems, and you guys come out the winners.
I tell you what, you know, hats off to all the teams that competed here. With all the cars here and the caliber of teams, it was a tough haul. And Andy did such a good job with a car that was broken, and the team did a great job over the winter. We're just happy to be here. God is good.
Congratulations, guys. I think we know why they're the champions from last year. Bob?
All right, thanks very much, Chris. Congratulations to the overall winners. Here's a look at the GT class standings. And this was the best race right down to the flag. Johnny Mollem holding off Mike Rockenfeller by 6.97 seconds officially to win the class. Andrea Montermini brought that Ferrari 360 Modena home in the 3rd and final podium position. GT was the biggest class in all, some 23 starters. Well over half of them finished. In fact, there was comparatively low attrition for a 24-hour race, much less a 24-hour race held in the kind of weather conditions we saw here at Daytona International Speedway. Let's go to Brian Till.
Bob, not only was GT one of the biggest classes, it was one of the best battles, and Mike Fitzgerald, you guys came out on top, but what a drive by your teammate at the end. Difficult conditions, and I know that you guys were strategizing, trying to figure out what to do with the rain.
Yeah, it was tough, but the Flying Lizard guys, I want to compliment them. They did a tremendous job, but they had a pit before us, so basically we just did whatever they did.
There we go, the Policastros are here.
And Johnny had to go drive around on slicks in the rain.
We didn't think these guys were going to show up. I was going to take the extra Rolexes. Congratulations, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Great. One hell of a drive under difficult conditions. Bob, the celebration, it has begun.
All right, now let's take a look at the Super Grand Sports standings. Our third and final class in competition, Jean-Francois Dumoulin, that Canadian crewed Porsche GT3 Cup car, comes home first over Randy Pobst and company in a similar machine. In fact, it's all Porsche GT3 Cup machinery across the board. Dave Lacey bringing home the bronze medal squad. 2 more class victories for Porsche here at Daytona. Memory serves, that brings them to a grand total of 57 victories in all. Let's get back down to victory lane.
Well, what a performance by this Doncaster racing team. JF, great performance out there this afternoon.
Thank you. I mean, it was a teamwork. Everybody did a great job out there. All the drivers, the team members, you know, everybody put their heart in, and that was a big team effort. We're really happy to have everybody on board. It was a lot of fun.
Well, they made the move up. We see Robert Julian winning races regularly last year with the Doncaster racing team. Greg Pootmans and Mark Lieb, Porsche factory driver. Great group of guys you had together, and that was just one dominant run. You really had out front all day.
Yeah, we had really fun, especially I had fun in the night. I mean, we all together, it was fantastic how we worked together. I mean, in the night it was really difficult conditions with the rain and with the visibility, and all the other guys, like, they did a fantastic job, and it was just a perfect race.
Well, a perfect race indeed by the Doncaster team, and expect many more of them this season, Bob.
Thanks very much, Calvin. The rain is held up, but the champagne spray is about to begin, and there is the trophy that everyone wants to get their names on. The Rolex 24 at Daytona. 42nd running is now complete. But we'll be back to wrap things up from Florida.
Speed Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Porsche. Porsche, there is no substitute. By Rolex, the watch of achievers the world over. And by Axiom, the global leader in customer information management solutions. Let Axiom help you grow great relationships with your customers. Welcome back, and there's a sorry sight. The car that led the most laps in this race, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Andy Wallace and Tony Stewart. The car being towed back to the pits. Quickly, final thoughts, Dorsey.
Well, the racing when we had it, it was great, no better. The parity amongst these new classes, excellent. And I think the future is here of the new sports car racing era.
David?
Well, I think we saw the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat all in about the last 10 minutes of this 24-hour race. We saw it all today. Tremendously emotional race.
Great from up here, and there is a very successful team. Look at Andy Pilgrim on the left. There's the car owner, Forrest Barber, and Terry Borcella, the reigning champion. And for all four, even Christian Fittipaldi on the right, it's their first overall victory in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. What an incredible race for a variety of reasons. And there are your successful quartet. Pretty amazing stuff.
A great victory for this team who won the championship last year. The Doran, of course, more developed than any other car there. But my heart really goes out to poor old Max Crawford. I mean, he put everything into it. And boy, oh boy, the way he took it on the chin there was just like 8 minutes to go and the thing is stuck in the wall. I mean, I couldn't believe the way he was smiling about it.
Last year it was a Ford-powered Multimatic that won. Yeah, there's Sir Sterling on the right-hand side. And this year it's a Pontiac-powered Doran that is victorious. Thoroughly enjoyable from up here, Bob. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, gentlemen. They consider Le Mans the greatest 24-hour race in the world. But there is really no other race anywhere that produces the twists and turns and drama of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Each year, it just amazes us, as it did once again in 2004. We'll leave you with some of the great memories of this great race. Diffie, David Hobbs, Dorsey Schrader, Calvin Fish, Brian Till, Chris Neville, and all of us at Speed Channel, I'm Bob Varsha. So long from Daytona Beach.